When you send an invitation to somebody to take a survey using Forms Pro, what's going to happen is they're going to receive an email, and right at the bottom you're going to see there's going to be some text that explains that it's a system generated email, and also gives them the option to go ahead and unsubscribe. So let's go ahead and look at what happens when someone receiving your Forms Pro survey invitation actually clicks on this link. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on it. It's going to open up a new tab and it's going to say unsubscribe. Are you sure you want to unsubscribe and stop receiving these emails? Yes, I'm going to go ahead and click here to unsubscribe. So now we've seen that we've been successfully unsubscribed, and if I've subscribed in error, I can go ahead and click here to subscribe again. I'm not going to do that just yet, so we'll go ahead and we will close this window. All right, so what happens in CDS? So if I scroll down, I'm in my app where I've added all of my Forms Pro survey entities too, and we've got one called unsubscribes. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and I can see, and this is a not a standard view, this is a personal view that I've created. One thing to keep in mind with all except for the survey response entity, currently you cannot make any changes or create system views or make modifications to the forms, so keep that in mind. So this is my personal view, and I can see there that's the email address for the person, janecontactdoe@gmail.com. So we can see there that we've got this record that's been created that lets us know that they've unsubscribed. All right, now if I go to my contact of Jane, so we can see that we've been able to send surveys to her before. That's fine, and actually this is the one that we just clicked on to unsubscribe for Jane. There's no indication, there's no connection from that unsubscribe record to Jane other than the email address. However, what happens if we go ahead and we go to another form? This is really what we're interested in. Okay, well, what happens next in terms of actually going ahead and sending her an invitation to complete something else? So let's say that we want to send her something about an event. So I'm just going to go ahead and do a manual send an email, so we can just go ahead and do this. So we'll go ahead and click on Jane Doe, and we'll go ahead and we'll send that. So we can see that there's a message that says, congratulations, the survey invitation was sent to the recipients. So that's a bit concerning because as far as we're concerned right now, that's gone ahead and that's actually been sent. So let's go ahead and look back in CDS, and let's go ahead and look at the survey invites. And where's our, yeah, so let's go ahead and have a look. Okay, so what has happened is that survey invite has actually gone ahead and given a survey invite status of unsubscribed. Now, we're going to walk through a flow, but this flow is actually what's changing the status reason to cancelled. Otherwise, it would just show up as being open. So when I looked at this, I thought, right, we need a little bit of a different process, because I would want to know that actually nothing's actually gone out. This was actually cancelled. So if I also scroll over to the right, what I've also done is I have set the subject to say unsubscribed, invite not sent, and then the name of the survey. So this tells us, and that's fine, that tells us that they've unsubscribed. But if I'm actually looking back on Jane's record, so if we go back to her, now, because I've changed that subject, I can see very clearly unsubscribed, invite not sent. Whereas before, if we hadn't changed that using a Microsoft Flow, it would have just shown the name of the survey, or sorry, the subject that was on the invitation email that had gone out. So hopefully you can see that, to me, that's a much better process. Now, what I've done is I've gone one step further. And if I go into the details, if you think about your contact preferences that I'm sure you're all using or aware of, I've added in a new option for survey invites. And what I've done is in the flow, I've basically said, right, if somebody's unsubscribed, let's go ahead and change that survey invites to do not allow. Now that's not what's going to stop the emails going out. Obviously, the fact that someone clicked on that link to unsubscribe is what's going to stop it. But this means that if I'm using marketing lists, I'm doing any kind of searching, I'm doing a check before I use my Microsoft Flow to send it out, then I know that I'm not actually bringing those people in. I'm not even attempting to send them anything. Okay, so let's go ahead and actually look at the flow that I've created. So let's go ahead and edit this. We've got a flow manage survey unsubscribes. So the very first thing is when a survey invite record is created. That's when we're going to trigger this flow. So that survey invite created, it can either be manually in the way that I just did, where I went to Forms Pro itself and I put in Jane's email address and sent that out. So that's manually, that's fine. We're doing it from Forms Pro. It creates that survey invite. Also, I did test if you send out a survey invite from a different flow, then it also honors that and also stops that from actually being sent out. Even though your flow might succeed, it's not going to actually send that email out to the contact. So we are triggering it when the survey invite is created. Then what we're going to do is we're going to do a quick check on the survey invite status field and make sure that it is equal to this ID. So it should be the same as in your environment, but you can always obviously check. You can go in and have a look at that field and see what the ID is. Also, you could use Fetch XML Builder in the XRM toolbox and have a look that way as well. All right, so we're basically saying if it's set to unsubscribed, so if the survey invite status is unsubscribed, yes, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to get the survey that survey invite is linked to. The reason we're doing this is so that I can add the name of the survey to the end of the subject. That's really the only reason. You don't have to do this. To me, it's just going to look a little bit neater. It's going to be more informative if I'm looking through those survey invites later on. I can see exactly what it's all about. So I'm basically getting the Forms Pro survey entity, and I'm using the survey ID from the actual invite record that was created. So I'm getting the survey. Then what I'm doing is I'm updating the survey invite. So this is where I'm getting that survey invite that was used in the trigger. I'm using that record identifier of the activity ID. And then what I'm doing is I'm putting in the words unsubscribed, invite not sent, hyphen, and then the name of the survey from this step right here. You don't have to do that, but again, to me, it just makes things a heck of a lot clearer when I'm looking at a contact record and I can see immediately, oh, they've unsubscribed, that wasn't sent to them. The other thing that I'm doing is if you've been looking at Forms Pro at all, you'll know that the survey invites are an activity, so they have an activity status or a status reason, and they all stay open. So to me, this is a perfect opportunity to say, well, actually, no, this was cancelled. It was never sent out. So again, changing that status gives a more informative insight into what's happened with that survey invite. Okay, so then what we're doing is we are looking to see who is actually tied to this activity. So in order to be able to update that contact record and change that new custom field that I'd added to say allow or do not allow survey invites, I need to know who the contact is. Now the survey invite has been linked to the contact, but it's not necessarily always going to be linked using the regarding field. So you might have a survey invite that was sent regarding the closure of a case, in which case the regarding field, if you do a check to see if and look for that person, it's not going to be accurate. So what we need to do is we need to look at the activity party's entity, and then we need to basically find the we need to look at the activity party's entity, and we need to do a filter on that to find it where the activity ID value equals the activity of the survey invite. Now, in order to get this entity, if I get rid of this and I start scrolling down, I see activities but I don't see activity party. So if I go all the way to the bottom and click on enter custom value, this is where I will type in activity parties, and then I'll be able to put in that query of underscore activity ID underscore value equals, and then the activity from the trigger. Okay, so once we've done that, what is going to happen, excuse me, is because there could potentially, there aren't, but on an activity you could have multiple people that are party to that activity. So if you think about an appointment, you could have several people that are being invited to that appointment. So you would have potentially 3 contacts that could come back for that. For the survey invite, you won't. You'll only ever have 1. So what we're able to do is we're going to basically say get the contact, and we're going to use the item identifier that will come up that will be party. So that will come from the there we go, from the get activity party step. We'll be able to put in party. As soon as you do that, this apply to each will appear, so you don't actually add that yourself. Then the final thing we're going to do is we're going to update the contact using the record identifier from the previous step. And it's going to be near the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go to my survey invites, and I'm going to change it to yes. Now it's a 2 option field, yes or no, even though it's displaying allow or do not allow. Do not allow is yes in this situation. All right. Now, the other thing that I'm going to do is on the no side. So in other words, if a new survey invite comes through and it is not equal to unsubscribed, then what I want to do is I want to, again, use the activity parties and basically get any of the activity parties linked to the survey invite, so that 1 contact. And then what I want to do is get that contact from there, and then what I want to do is I want to check to see if that field, the survey invite field, is already equal to do not allow, meaning that they've previously unsubscribed. If yes, I'm going to change it back to subscribed. Oh, sorry, I'm going to change it back to allow for those survey invites. So the reason why I've got this in here as well is because if we don't do that, then we could have a contact that is starting to receive survey invites again, but on their contact record we've got them flagged to say do not allow, and again that's because that unsubscribe record is not directly linked to the contact. So you could potentially do something based on the email address that's linked to that that unsubscribe and kind of do some kind of reverse lookup, but you could also potentially have that email address on multiple contacts, so it little bit could be a little bit challenging, but that's another way to do it possibly. But this way, whenever that survey invite record comes through, I'm checking to see whether somebody has already previously unsubscribed or not. Is this survey invite set to being unsubscribed? Then again, we just make sure that that is up to date on the contact record. So hopefully that all makes sense. Now the last thing to keep in mind is if I go back to this email and I go back and let's just go through, so we'll go through that process again. So if I've subscribed in error, please click here to subscribe again. And now it says it's subscribing, you have been subscribed again. So if I go back, assuming this is updated right away, and I go back to my unsubscribes, that has now disappeared. So the unsubscribe is gone. Now what should be happening is that if that flow is then the next time that I try and send out a survey invite to somebody, then that flow will run and it will go back to Jane Doe's record and it will change the flag to say that yes, they allow survey invites to be sent to them. So hopefully this helps, gives you a bit of understanding on how the unsubscribes functionality works. If you've got any thoughts or comments, go ahead and leave them below. Hi, I'm Megan Walker. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video and that you learned something from it. If you don't want to miss out on any other content, you can go ahead and click on my face below to subscribe. And if you want to watch the next video, you can do that by clicking over here and go ahead and get started. Thanks again.